Welcome to the PowettPlay podcast, where international cricketer Kieran, Powell and marketing genius Shannon join forces, bringing you captivating conversations with the biggest players in cricket and business. Join us as we dive into the lives of current stars in the cricketing world, the legends before them, and those extraordinary icons whose performances changed the game in both cricket and business. Exploring journeys both on and off the pitch, the boardroom, and everything in between. Get ready for an exhilarating blend of cricket, life, and business insights, with two insatiably passionate, infuriatingly no-holds-barred hosts, who, unfortunately for the rest of us, live and breathe this stuff for a living.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 47 of the PowettPlay podcast. I'm your host Shannon, and as always I'm joined by my co-host Kieran, Powell, and today we're joined by a special guest, David Paynter. Thank you so much for joining us, David. How are you?
Yeah, good guys. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. But as we do with our guests, I want to see, start from the very beginning. And how did your life in cricket sort of come from? I have a slight inkling, but I'll let you explain.
Yeah, I guess it's in my family, I think, which you probably are aware of. But I guess it dates back to the 1930s. You know, my great-grandfather played for England, famously known for his heroics in the Bodyline series in Australia, 33-34, which is a great story, really. You know, it's something that, he can be super proud of, and all the family can, really. You know, he ended up hitting a six to win the Ashes, which is just incredible. Yeah. You know, it is when you say it like that. The ball went into the crowd, 100,000 people back in those days, ridiculous crowds. A young guy got the ball, and Douglas Jardine the captain of England at the time, managed to get the assistant to find the young lad who got the ball, right, and said, look, we really want that ball back to present to Eddie because of his heroics in this test. And in exchange, we'll give you a signed shirt from both teams, right, in exchange. And that, I don't think many people know that, but yeah, that's what happened. And they got the ball back. And then Douglas Jardine and the team presented it to my great-grandfather with a nice little plaque on some nice cross bats with the ball on top. But yeah, it was amazing, really. So I guess cricket's always been in the family. My dad played a little bit, granddad a little bit, and then obviously I managed to play professional for about 5 years. So didn't do too bad. Probably should have done better, but I'll take it. I got a first class century, which you can't take away from me.
Nope. More than a lot of people, anyway. Put it that way.
Exactly. Yeah.
So did you, obviously with you mentioned obviously before we started the podcast, you were saying you live in Huddersfield. So did you start out for Yorkshire initially?
Yeah, so as a kid, same old thing. Went through the hard yards, all the junior system for Yorkshire, underage groups. Like I think I started at like under 10s, right, and then it went right up the system. Managed to get into like the academy at Yorkshire. Played a few second team games, but never really got picked up by Yorkshire. It was really tough. Like they had so much talent at Yorkshire. I mean, they still do, but back in those days, it was so tough to get in. And I got a trial down at Worcestershire, actually, believe it or not, from Richard Illingworth, the umpire. Yeah, so we knew him quite well, and he got me a trial down there, and I did really well. So I played second team. And they kept ringing me while I was working for my dad. And I'd used to break off, go play a second team game for 3 days. Right. And I kept getting runs, so I kept getting a phone call, come back. Yeah. And I played against Northamptonshire for Worcestershire. And they had Devon Malcolm, Monty Panesar, Graham Swan. They had quite a lot of names at that point playing in the second team. Right. And I think I got like a 90 and an 80, in first and second dig. So I played really well. And one thing or another at Worcester, there was a bit of change in first team manager. Tom Moody was in and out, and they couldn't really focus on signing anybody until they got the first team coach sorted.
Right.
But in the meantime, I got an offer from Northants to go and play for them on a contract.
Right.
So I had to take it, really. I couldn't turn it down. And then I went to sign for them. So I signed for them for about 4 or 5 years.
Right. Okay.
Played down there, second team, bit of first team, some one days. But yeah, again, we had Mike Hussey as the overseas, and back in those days, I was an opening bat. So
yeah,
we had Malloy, Mike Hussey, and then there was me and a few young lads all competing to try and get in one of those spots, which is really tough.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I travelled the world, met loads of friends.
Yeah.
Went to New Zealand for 3 years on the trot, Australia, played in West Indies, India. Yeah, so I mean, the sport is unreal for that. It's
definitely. Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned about so was you always working for your dad then in between this sort of period of time?
Well, until when I got a contract, obviously I was contracted.
Yeah.
So if I backtrack, I was never really academic as such. I'm not bright in that respect. I guess, I'm more outside the box thinker, quite practical, but I wasn't a massive fan of school. I like to go for, to see the lads and my friends and have a bit of a laugh and a joke. But, so I was never really going to stay on sixth form, go to university. That wasn't for me. It's not saying it's wrong or right, but everyone's different, aren't they? So I always had kind of a fallback in terms of I always had a bit of work going on with my dad, who had a flooring contracting business. So, he'd fit out universities and schools, and it was quite hard work, to be fair. But I always had something there, I guess, as a bit of a fallback to say I've got a little bit of work, if I need it. And then cricket was always kind of churning away because I always wanted to be a cricketer. That was the dream. And I guess that's when that transition of Worcester came on. I had a little bit of work and a little bit of cricket, and then eventually that work kind of subsided, and then the cricket took over because I'd kept doing well.
Yeah.
And then got gifted a contract, and then the cricket took over full time. Then I guess till I was mid-20s, something like that. So I guess I was quite young when I stopped playing, but I got injured, and I don't know, you guys will know, sometimes you can get enough of something as well. I played since I was so little.
Yeah.
And I played 11 months of the year. And, I was like what you call a fringe player. So I was always second team, first team. And it was it's stressful, when you're in and out and there's politics in the team, and, it's hard work. So I was kind of ready to leave professional sport at the time.
Yeah.
I probably did leave a little bit early in hindsight, but at the time I was ready and thought, right, I'm just going to go get a job, maybe go back to work with my dad, play some league cricket, earn a bit of money there, and see how that goes.
During the time at Northants, when did you start to think about the contingency plan? Obviously, that it might not work out long term, really. Yeah, I mean, it does come into your mind quite a lot, and you do all your coaching badges. I did all those, but the business side of it didn't really strike to me when I was a professional cricketer. So I was all focused on cricket, and I had quite a bad back at one point, and then the contract didn't get renewed, and I was like, do I keep going? Or do I kind of just say, look, I'm going to kind of go back and work and do whatever I'm going to do? And I guess, again, I was kind of fortunate because I had a job to go back to in terms of my dad's family business. Yeah.
So I guess that was kind of my fallback plan in terms of, look, I'm going to go back and work. I can earn a wage, and then I can maybe see what I want to do, or if I want to take on that, or I don't enjoy that. And that actually goes well into the story about the brand.
Yeah.
Because I did do that for 7 years, I think, from leaving professional sport.
Right.
Yeah, so became a contracts manager in the flooring game, and I was a director of the company. But Yeah, it was weird because, I said to my now wife, I said, this isn't for me. It's great. I've got a nice wage. And I guess this is what separates some people from others, in that I took a massive gamble and said, look, I've got a nice steady job. I earn an okay salary. I've got 2 young kids at the time. And I said to her, I don't want to do it anymore. I haven't got a clue what I'm going to do, but I'm gonna quit the job. My dad wasn't involved at that point, so there was no conflict or fallout or anything like that. It was run by somebody else. But I said, no, that's it. I'm going to, look after the kids for a bit, figure out what I want to do. She works for the NHS, so she had like a steady income kind of thing. She was, I guess, then became a bit more of a breadwinner, I guess. So she supported me all the way through those times.
Right. Okay.
Which was great. And I literally had a year with the kids, taking them to school, looking after them, stay-at-home dad. I was bits of driving a white van, bits of working here and there. My dad's doing bits and bats on his own, so I used to help him. And then just figuring out what I wanted to do, I guess. So you forget how scary that was, really. And there was no brand on the horizon at this point. Absolutely.
That's what I was going to say. So how far into that sort of 7-year period then?
Yeah, the full 7-year period, there was no brand. I just made a decision that I'm going to leave that job.
Right.
So that's why it was so risky. It's like I didn't even have an inkling about a footwear brand or starting a brand. I was like, look, I don't want to do it. I ain't got a clue what I'm going to do, but I can't keep doing this. I'm better than this. I knew I wanted to do something. Something inside me were going, you're better than this. You're better than just turning up and just settling for that. And that was something in me that was telling me to do that. And that's when I made the decision to leave the job. And it was in that year where I was with the kids. And, that's when your back's against the wall, then you really do start thinking about what you want to do in life and things like that. And I'll go on to tell the story. It's, it was one night and something must have been it was in me because I was a cricketer.
Yeah.
I had this light bulb moment, you can call it, where I knew that there was a lot of chopping and changing in footwear in cricket. My peers at Northants and at Yorkshire were getting trainers spiked and it was like, right, okay. And I did it as well as a player. So sometimes the most, the best ideas and right in front of your face, sometimes you just have to make it into something, if that makes sense. And, I kind of said, right, there's a huge opportunity here because there's a reason why these lads are doing that and they're spending a lot of money doing it and they're avoiding what's on the shelf.
Yeah.
What's been offered from brands at that point. It's changing a little bit now, but we're backtracking quite a few years. This is 2015, I think I had, when I was kind of having the idea.
Yeah.
14, 15. And I said to my wife, that's it. I'm gonna create a shoe. It's so bizarre. I'm gonna create a shoe. I'm gonna create a brand. I'm gonna source a factory in China or somewhere random. Listen, I knew nothing about business, nothing about brands, nothing about marketing, nothing about footwear really, although I was passionate about footwear. I've always been a bit of a footwear geek, but nothing about running a business or e-commerce, anything. Literally, I have done the yards, I've been through the run of the mill. So, and she was so supportive. And I explained it to her, and she said, "Look, you've got to trust your gut. You know that game. There's gaps there. Go for it." And I guess that's when the hard work started. Yeah. From that point on, basically, because you have to make it happen then.
So what was the time scale then from obviously making that to then say what was the steps really?
Yeah. So then you're into like, right, what do I do? There's so many. There's a lot of excitement. So you're super excited. You're not sleeping much. You're waking up at 3, 4 in the morning, and you're going downstairs and you're Googling stuff. And because I was constantly had to search stuff because I didn't know how to do it. And it's all there. This day and age, the information is there at touch of a button. You've just got to look for it and just be a bit proactive. And you've got to want to do it. You've got to be passionate about it.
Yeah,
and I was so passionate about creating this brand and that it would be a success because it was needed at this point in cricket, because that's the sport that I knew. I was just so confident it was going to work. So I just kept going and going. I was Googling factories and went on Alibaba, and then it's like, I've actually spoke to the Gymshark guys a few times, the clothing guys.
Yeah.
And I used to follow them, so I'd look like, how did they do the clothing and where did they go? And then I found like one of them said, went on Alibaba and I did this. So then you go on Alibaba and then you look for, you just kind of, just got to think slightly outside the box and look at what other people have done. And then I found a factory, and then you've got the language barrier, and then you've got samples, and you've got some cost, because you just all at this point, I'm just Dave Paynter. That's it. Yeah. I'm nobody. So, just somebody trying to cadge some free shoes off them, because that's what they get all the time, these factories. So then it kind of, I guess then it morphed. Sorry, going back to a time scale, this from the idea, I think it was like 2014, 2015, and we launched in January 2017.
Right, okay. So 2 now.
Probably, yeah. Which, I mean, looking back, it's probably fairly quick, but I don't know. To say that I knew nothing, and you've got to find a factory, you've got to get a designer, you've got to get the stuff designed, you've got to get prototypes, you've got to get them tested.
Legislation in places, various things. I imagine you've got to get in place and stuff like that. So
you just run into problems that you don't even exist.
Yeah,
so that's just the learning curve. How shipping works. It's just you're constantly just learning and searching and Googling things, and to a point where I kind of, halfway through those 2 years, I guess, went to my dad and said, look, I've got this idea, blah, blah, blah. And he said, look, it sounds great. It sounds good.
Yeah.
And I said, but I'm going to need some money to do it because I've only got a small amount of savings. And he said, well, there's a couple of guys that he knows that might throw, I think it was like 20 grand each at the time. So it was 60 grand.
Yeah.
And I give some equity away in the business back in those days. So, but it got me off from running. I was quite naive. When you look back at it now, you could easily criticize that decision, but when you're in that moment, you just do what you need to do to get the foot to move to the next step. Yeah, because I didn't block, and it's like, well, I'm getting charged quite a lot of things now because with footwear you have molds. Molds are super expensive. The outsole and the midsole, and it's all molds. And until you have a relationship with a factory, you have to pay for them molds.
Yeah.
And the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So it'd come to a halt. So you just have to do what you have to do to keep moving it forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I managed to do that. So I guess then the process just kind of picked up. One of the investors knew a designer. Right. He helped me design. He put my vision on screen and on paper.
Yeah.
And that was a long process because you really have to get that right. But it was all in there for me. So I knew everything that 100% I knew what I wanted. And then I just had to relay all that to him in terms of there's ways and means to set out that in different files and formats.
Yeah.
That the factory needs. Again, you have to learn all this the hard way. But, and then you just go to prototype stage, prototyping, 9 times out of 10, they make it wrong.
Yeah. And well, that's what I was going to say. How hard was it to get that? Obviously, you had it all upstairs what you wanted, but how hard was that to actually get that into your designer, really? Because you've got it, like you said, you're the one who's got you play cricket, so you understand what you really want and what you need, and you've got it all upstairs. How hard is it to actually get it over to him or her to be able to then?
Super hard. Yeah. So, I mean, again, it goes back to how good your designer is, and if they're on the ball in terms of footwear and they know, about footwear and materials and your molds and things like that. But it was tough. And back in those days, I wasn't really rushing, like, because I had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
You know, this was just all a massive gamble. You know, I didn't know whether I was going to sell one pair of shoes, but I just thought, if I don't try this, I'll be absolutely fuming for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know, so I've got to at least try and bring out a shoe and a website and launch it and just see what happens. You know what I mean? And then I can deal with it. If it's a failure, it's a failure, and you just go back, and at least you can say to whoever, you tried and you failed. And, you know, I didn't. So, I did something right. But, yeah, it's a lot of persistence, and it was hard work. You know, the design process is really tough. And then you haven't just got the information with your designer over here. You've then got to relate to China.
China, yeah.
That's even harder.
Yeah.
That is even harder. So, again, I found out the hard way, sent the files across, blah, blah, blah. Samples came, totally wrong.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
Time scale as well. I can imagine that's, again, you've got to wait time for that to then, stage 2 and stage,
So long. You're constantly waiting. Like, where are they? And, you'll be able to relate to this, guys. But the first sample I got, and it looked all right, and I turned the outsole, the shoe underneath.
Yeah.
And the spikes, obviously you've got the metal spikes in the outsole. And I grabbed them like that, and it just flexed, it just bent. And I'm like, oh my God, like, as soon as somebody runs and stops, that's just gonna rip out.
Yeah.
But they don't know that. So that's the kind of thing you're up against. It's like, it's so simple in my head that was a given, but it ain't a given. No. Like, you have to treat them like a 2-year-old kid. Like, you have to really dot the I's, cross the T's with every single thing. And, even now, I'm actually still with the same factory, believe it or not, on the cricket side, which is a good thing.
Also, definitely, yeah.
It's took them a long time to really get to grips with the sport and the shoe build.
Yeah.
Because cricket is tough, especially when you've got fast bowlers and fast bowling shoes. But yeah, that was a crazy times back then.
So once you got the shoe and it was the perfect shoe that you wanted, at what stage did you start thinking of this like strategy in terms of how to get it into the market?
Yeah, so I guess that's the next stage in it. I had ideas, like I wanted to do things different to every other brand that were out there in cricket. Your Greys, your Guns, even your Addies and Asics. Because at that point, I actually think they've upped the game now. But back in those days, I think I was a catalyst to actually put a rod up their ass, because they were sat on the laurels. They weren't really doing much, and they were just kind of like, well, we're here. We're a global brand, and we'll just keep churning out the same shoes.
Yeah.
So I said to, my dad's always been kind of my sounding board through business, and he's great at that. But he's a little bit more of an old school businessman, is my old man. So, and I said, look, I want to do things different with this. This has got to be different to everything else. So I wanted this 3D animation video to launch back in 2016, this.
Okay,
and it's got another spinning shoe. It's an animation video, so not an actual video. And it's blowing out the USPs, and this is why it's different, and all this, and it's got some nice, cool music round. Nobody had really done that in cricket.
No, not at all.
They do it in running and things like the big markets. I'm like, well, why can't we just focus on a sport? Because what's peanuts to you is a mountain for me, because it's such, because I'm only tiny, whereas for Nike and Adidas, they're probably not that bothered about
to drop in the ocean.
You know what I mean? It's just nothing for them. So that was kind of the door opening that allowed me in a way. But then, you still have to do things right. You have to do things different. You have to have a slight niche. And I felt like ours was definitely a performance brand. So that's so big in getting your message right when you're trying to create a brand.
Yeah.
You've got to have kind of like a point of difference. You've got to keep coming back to one thing. And ours was performance. So our strapline is performance multiplied. which means we're using knowledge either from myself or Mike Forsey on the golf side or whoever to create better products for the athletes, because we know the ins and outs of different materials, different molds, different textures, this and that are going to make the best footwear for that athlete to get the best performance for his job, I guess. And that's so strong, because you can use that in anything, and then you can just keep coming back to performance. Like, everybody wants to perform better.
Yeah.
So if you're an athlete in any sport, you kind of, you always want to do better, and most people, you want to win. So if you can produce products that are going to enhance that performance, then that's never going to go away. And I felt like that was such a good strapline that fit with our brand. It was so nice back in the day. Me and our then designer came up with, and that stood us in good stead for ever since.
How important was it to get the balance between the performance, as you mentioned there, so like the function, then also like the fashionable side of it, to make it? Yeah. Do you know, where did you rate in terms of like a 70-30, 80-20? Where did you find the split between the performance and the style of the shoe as such?
Yeah, I guess, being honest, I was back in those days. I've changed now, I'd say.
Right.
I have. That's just being honest. I think performance is now top of the list, but I think back then, when I was just starting out, I was very visual. Right. So I felt like the visual side, because people are visual. Yeah. So if you see something, so I kind of, my brain works like, if you see something and it's ugly, you're going to bypass that, even if it's the best performing product ever. Yeah. You don't get chance to use that performance because you've bypassed it because it looks ugly.
Yeah.
So my theory back then was, let's make it look good, then let's make it comfortable, then let's focus on the performance element side of things. So, and don't get me wrong, like, I feel like we've got such cool branding. It just goes without saying, we're not going to make ugly shoes. Yeah. So, it's just, I feel like, the guys on the cricket side and the golf side, we're kind of all on the same page. So I feel like we make good looking products anyway, but I do feel like the priority list, first and foremost, we're a performance brand now, so you have to focus on performance because it's in our DNA. It's what we are as a brand.
Yeah.
And then I think the other things fall into place underneath.
Yeah. And sorry, Kieran, I feel like I'm still, as I do, I'm going on with myself as I do. So just feel free to tell me to shut up if anyway. What I was going to say is, at what point then did you realise, did you have to plug into your network from a cricketer's perspective to try and get some players to use this product? Yep.
Yeah. That was a big part of my role. Obviously, that was where I thought I had a bit of I guess an advantage in a way, if you call it an advantage, but it's still bloody hard work. I was good friends with Graham Swan at the time, and Swanee was great. And he said, look, come down to, I think he was working for BT Sports at the time in London. And I was up at 3 a.m, drove down. Oh, I was so excited. Like, I had these prototypes and I got there and I'll never forget it, parked up. It's still dark when I got there. I think they were doing like an Australia game. So they were working in the middle of the night. That was
right. Okay. Right. Yeah.
It was real random times. And I got there and Swanee were there, so I knew Swanee well. And then Michael Vaughan turned up, right. And then I was like a bit starstruck. And then Greg James, the radio.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was there as well. And I was just chatting away and they're all grabbing the shoe and looking at him. And I was like, oh, no. But yeah, and it just kind of went from there. And you're taking pictures and you're snapping this and snapping that. And Graham helped me initially. And then Vaughan got in touch.
Right, okay.
And I guess then it kind of snowballs a little bit. Obviously, I had other friends that I gave shoes out to, but, I really wanted to focus on the lads that I knew, because I thought the word of mouth amongst the professional players is super strong. And then obviously you have to have a strategy in terms of, your marketing strategy and your online strategy and, your e-commerce. But it was super important because it does just give you that, the confidence, I guess, if somebody like that is going, look, this is super cool. There's brand new brand on it, ex-player, it's family heritage, it's a performance shoe, never been done before, and then it kind of it was needed. I guess I kind of spotted a little bit of a gap, what they call a gap in the market back in those days, that nobody were really doing it. So that helped me, because there was nothing like our product on the market.
No.
And before you know it, I was getting phone calls from retailers, people overseas, wanting to distribute it. Yeah, so my strategy all along, again, I was trying to be different from the norm. I was going to be a D2C brand. So that means direct to consumer. Those who don't know, and I just wanted to be online, and just really focus on the socials and the ambassadors, and, you maximize your margins from a business perspective. And I remember we was in my dad's garage because we put the stock in his garage, and we launched on, I think it was like 6th of January. I think it was a Friday, 2017. And then we were me and my dad and sister, stepmom and everything. And we were there, we launched it and it was great and it looked fantastic, the website. And I think we got I want to say 46 orders the first day, which was, we were over the moon.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not, we hadn't sold one pair of shoes with, 40 odds, not bad. Yeah. And within, and we got a few, this next days and next days and next days. But then what came trickling through was retailers in the UK going, how do we stock your shoes? How do we stock your shoes? How do we stock your shoes? And I'm like, shit, I don't really want to go down the retail route. And they're throwing orders hundreds of pairs. And this is just one order. And, we're busting a gut for 20, 30, 40 pairs. So we had a kind of a bit of a, meeting and what do we do here? I think I had 30 retailers.
Wow.
All, so that adds up.
Is that, was that worldwide as well?
No, just UK.
Wow, right, fantastic.
Yeah. So literally 30 odd retailers are we want to place orders. So it's quite hard to turn that down, when you're just a startup brand, and the cash flow kind of just helps. And so we made an about turn and we said, right, okay, we're going to now service some retailers.
Yeah.
And then I guess it just snowballed, the retailers start pushing it online, different people start seeing it. And then I'd get call from, somebody in Australia wanting to stock it, South Africa, New Zealand, and it just kind of goes from there, really. And that was, I guess that's how the cricket really started in terms of the business side, yeah.
And how did you find the way of sort of from a player perspective with, because at the time they might have been signed contractually with certain other brands. Did you have any issues from that side of things?
Yeah, you do. Again, you have to learn these things, but there's not many players. There certainly weren't back then. There's a lot more now that have footwear deals.
Right.
So maybe that was just luck. I don't know that I went into footwear. There's a reason why a lot of people don't go into footwear, because it's super tough.
Yeah.
But one of the good points is that footwear and helmets are usually separate to kind of kit deals, depending on what brand you sign with. And even if you do sign with, say, Grays or Gun and More, usually your lads won't wear those shoes anyway, and they'll either wear, whatever brand they kind of want. And it just kind of depends on, I guess, that contract with the player and the brand, because there's usually some money exchanged. But I think the kit brands are trying to mop up the guys head to toe, but it's tough because, a lot of these kit brands are not regarded as proper footwear specialists. So
obviously performance side comes in, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So that's where feel like we have built that over the cricket side and the golf now, but it's it's super important because the guys do want the best footwear because you're on your feet all day long.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So it's a super important part, but yeah, some guy, there's not many, you like to Joe Root, for example, his New Balance head to toe.
Yeah.
You just don't, you can't go near him. But I think back in those days, it was a lot easier. I think it's getting harder now because there's a lot more money in the game as well. So, a lot more agents are involved, and then, the money starts coming in. But that's just an evolving thing in terms of the sport. But I do feel footwear was quite fortunate that most players that I got in touch with either said, right, I'll give them a go, and I'll try them for you. And then if I don't like them, I don't like them. Or fast bowlers are the hardest because they're usually set in their ways with the fast bowler too. But you've just got to have a bit of patience and you've got to be persistent. You've got to be super persistent, and that's an understatement as well.
I wanted to ask you, I read a bit about, a post as such about MS Dhoni coming on board. How did that come about at that point?
So the Dhoni thing came about, it was a guy called Kunal who had Spartan, and I think I was connected with him on socials or LinkedIn or somewhere. And he's obviously seen the brand.
Yeah.
And he was, at the time, he was sponsoring Dhoni, I think, with his kit. And he said randomly, I think it was a message. I think I've still got the message, And he went, MS has contacted me and he likes to look at your shoes and he wants to try them out. And I'm like, what? And he said, and then a few more messages, and then he kind of said, yeah, is it some, I think it was like Champions Trophy or something down at the Oval. So it was in England.
Right.
And he's there like now. Can you get some shoes to him tomorrow morning? And this was like tonight.
Yeah.
So like, obviously you have to do it.
Yeah,
so again, grabbed a few pairs of shoes, found his size, set off down to London at like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and got to the Oval. Explained who I was to some guy. I managed to get past the first guy, and then I got so far, and there's like, no, you're not going in there. It's like, yeah, but I need to get these shoes to MS Dhoni. Like, he's one of the biggest players ever.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we'll have to get somebody to come down and meet you. You're not going in there. I went, oh, okay. So then went back upstairs, got their dressing room attendant or whatever to come down, meet me. I give him the shoes. He went back up and give MS the shoes. So I never got to meet MS at that time.
Yeah.
And then kind of that was it. I didn't even stay and watch the game. I kind of got back in my car and went back up north.
Yeah.
And then like hope for the best. And then I was like on the, you're looking on social media.
Yeah.
Like just trying to get like a glimpse of him wearing the shoes. And I did. And there was a little video and he was actually fielding. He wasn't wicket keeping. And I saw him running in the shoes, and it was just like, wow, just over the years, you have a few of them kind of mind-blowing, surreal moments. But that was definitely one of them when he was actually wearing the shoe that said my name on the side of it.
Yeah.
And then it kind of just progressed. His team kind of got in touch with got in touch with me. I didn't really have a team. It was me. His team got in touch with me. Sounds good though. Of
course it does, definitely, yeah.
And then I flew over to India, and then I actually got to meet him.
Right, fantastic.
Which were great. And me just being me, I think I said, we sat down, and he was such a nice guy. And we just had press and people. We were in this room, so we weren't just in like out. We were in a room, and there was still like 10 cameramen all the way around him. And I was just sat chatting to him, and we were chatting about bits and bats, and I think at one point I said, I used to play, and it's all right. He didn't have a clue, obviously. I said, he said, were you a batter? I said, yeah, we're opening bat. I said, I could hit a big ball. I said, I think I could probably hit it further than you. That's what I said to him. And he just looked at me and laughed. And I thought, oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
But we just got on really well. Just a normal lad. You know, when you just sports people are sports people, but he's just in this bubble where it's incredible. I witnessed it firsthand. And I don't even think it can't even be enjoyable for him. You know, it's really ridiculous for him and the likes of Coley and the big boys. Like, they can't go anywhere without literally being mobbed. It's ridiculous over in India.
Yeah.
To a far greater extreme than our footballers and you know, the American guys. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's hard to explain really. They're literally gods. So yeah, it was crazy meeting him really.
And then in terms of, you know, as you're on your way over to India, potentially, are you starting thinking now about this Indian market and the idea at that point, thinking, right, this, you know, from a perspective of an endorsement side of things, it's just greater than any, you know, anything that you could probably imagine at that point.
Yeah, India's the market, I guess, from a business point, but it's strange because we still haven't cracked it, and it's still the hardest market to do business in the world, in my opinion. And that says a lot. And you know, we're 7 years in, and I know other brand CEOs and owners and big brands, and they're still like, we still haven't got that strategy right in India, and it's tough. It's India. You know, there's 1 billion people, and you know, for example, we had a distributor there, and I said, what we need to push online more is online sales. You know, because you just kind of go on what you're doing over here or what's happening in different countries, and you're like, why can't we do more online, you know, on the website? And my guy at the time went, I'll give you an example, Dave. If somebody will order the shoes and then what they'll do is they'll pay for them, but then they'll send them back, get the refund, but they don't send the shoes back, they'll send a load of rocks back in the box. And it's so hard work getting that person to because they've got their refund. So it's so hard for us to get our claim back off, you know, the insurance people. Yeah. It's not worth doing. And this happens all the time. So customers, they know how to play the system, and they take the shoes out, keep the shoes, get the refund, and send the box back with a load of weights or a brick in it. And he said that's just an example of what happens all the time in India. And then you're up against trying to claim that cost back through the government or through whoever. And it's just like, you're just banging your head against a brick wall. And it's just, I don't know, it's hard to explain. I don't know if you've ever been, but I like the country. I love the country, but it's so hard to do business in. And you've just got to have eyes in the back of your head. You know, you've got to find somebody you can trust, which is tough, doing business, you know, or being at the other side of the world. And that's a really big thing in from a business point of view that I'd say is that a trust, or finding somebody on the ground that you can trust, is a must if you want to do business in India. Yeah. Because you can't do it from arm's length. You have to be on the ground, and you have to have either a contact or a distributor you can trust, or a manager or somebody who works for you that you can fully trust to manage your interests inside India. Because otherwise you're just going to get your pants pulled down. It's a minefield, yeah. But then it's such a big market. You can't.
You feel that you have that now, though?
Sorry?
You feel that you have that now in terms of that Indian market? No.
I think we're still restructuring that market. We're kind of pulled back, but now we're trying to go back in for various reasons. But yeah, I don't know. We got in a bit of a lawsuit, I guess, with a company, which ended up going for 3 years. And that's just a prime example of doing business in India. So I've been through it. I've got the T-shirt. And you feel like you can trust somebody, and you can't.
No.
So, and then you get in a legal dispute, and ours went on for 3 years. It put us so far back in terms of that market and brand and everything. And the stress it causes on everyone. It was really tough. You know, it ain't plain sailing. It really ain't.
No.
You know, people see the nice things on social media and, you know, and all this. But when you really dig into building a business or a brand,
Yeah.
so many struggles that people don't see and and hurdles and obstacles to overcome.
Yeah.
And if you thought that wasn't the case, you know, you live in la la land, because it's just crazy.
And that it sort of like indicates there, like, how important it is to have that infrastructure in place, because you can have, like I said, one of the biggest cricketers of all time, you know, be a brand ambassador, but if the infrastructure is not right in that specific area where they're from, then it sort of you know, it becomes tough, really tough.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, people try and screw people. That's what happens in this day and age. It's sad to say, but that does happen all the time.
Yeah.
And I've been there, and I've been on receiving end of it. I personally, you know, I'm a quite a black and white guy, and I wear my heart on my sleeve. And sometimes I've learned that you can't do that sometimes in business. And it sounds really sad, doesn't it? Because you can't, but that's who I am. But I learned the hard way, and sometimes you've just got to have your wits about you and just be careful about what you say and who you trust and how much you divulge and how much you let go.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just a learning curve that it took me 7 or 8 years to get to where I am, to not make those mistakes again. And I've made a few of them, well, a lot of them. But, you know, I love India. I think that it's so nice to see how passionate they are about the game. That is just, it's amazing when you see, you know, like I said before, like England and football, it just knocks that straight out of the atmosphere. It's so much bigger. Like, they're obsessed with the game to a point where you're up at 6 a.m. and there's just thousands of kids playing cricket at 6 a.m. on just dirt.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing to see for the game. And it's just a country you can't ignore from a brand's point of view. It's just, it's hard to crack.
I can imagine. With then moving now sort of into the obviously the launching the golf side of things, what would you say were the real big key takeaways from the cricket side that you then would help you with from a business perspective, but also in any other way that really helped you then with the golf side of things?
So I guess we created a good brand, you know. So we created a good brand through sheer determination, passion, grit, and just persistence from my part, from other people who were involved, you know, family, friends, you know, even my wife. And we did something right, you know, and we did do it right. And I'm pleased to say that I think it was 2020. It was because it was COVID. And again, LinkedIn. This is how the golf started, by the way.
Yeah.
So there's just a bit of a story there, but LinkedIn again it's been a great platform for myself. I was connected with a guy called Mike Forsey, who was then at Under Armour, but it was 16 years at Nike, like one of the top dogs at Nike golf.
Yeah.
But at the time when I met him, he was at Under Armour. And he messaged me and basically said, look, I've been following your brand for some time. I love what you've done in cricket. You know, he wasn't a cricketer at all, but he said, I just love what you've done with your brand and your performance multiplied. And now you're fusing together different elements to create a better product. And the whole story behind the brand. And he just said, it's great. I love it. And then he said, have you ever thought about going into a different sport? And I just went, all the time. Like, when I had this crazy idea, cricket was just one sport. Me, ever the optimist, I was like, I want global domination with every single sport in the world. But, you know, I did want to go into different sports, but I never thought golf. The next one that I wanted to go in was going to be hockey. Right. And then he kind of came back and said, look, you know, I think we could do something great in golf. And obviously that's when the golf came up. So that kind of relationship just kind of went on a little bit. I did my research on him. As, you know, again, you've got to do your research. Not get stung as I'd done in the past. And that's where you live and learn and make sure everybody is what they say they are. And then he flew over from the States, which is a big indicator as well.
Yeah, massively, yeah.
Full presentation, amazing, absolutely mind-blowing, you know. And he said, look, I've had this idea for a while that golf was going through, or is going through, the same things that you identified in cricket is happening in golf, where the big brands are kind of sat on their ass. They're not really focusing on this. They're not focusing on performance. They're not focusing on ground force reactions and applying them into the footwear. And he said, we can do this. And I said, look, I play golf fairly badly, but I'm the cricket guy. So as long as you're going to take this on, and that's where kind of we built a new company, actually, Payntr Golf. And he said, look, I'm gonna take this on. So, and he has done, and he runs the whole golf side of things, and still does to this day, along with my other co-founder, which is Mike Blancy, sorry, both called Mike, who was also at Under Armour. So between the three of us, that's the core of the golf team. But he identified such a big gap in golf, and I guess my brand from the outside fit exactly into that gap of his vision, what he wanted to create. And you know, let's be honest, there's not, how many brands can you just go and you know, speak to the founder and go, you know, can we move you into a different sport? You know, because they're either, you know, huge global brands. Because you know, my competition's Adidas, New Balance, you know, Nike. You know, there's not many that have kind of gone into it, but are actually small independent brands.
Yeah.
And I guess we were. So we were such a good fit, you know. And then, obviously, you know, different factory. Mike's got all his own contacts from back in his day at Nike and Under Armour. So it was kind of like a self-made thing, jumping off what I'd built over the last 5 or 6 years at that point. And, you know, you fast forward today, I think we're the fastest growing golf footwear brand in the world, which is crazy.
It's fantastic. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then what I wanted to ask you is from the changes. So obviously when you mentioned there from say 2016, 2017, you mentioned there about social media and stuff and the role that it's played. What would you say the biggest changes have been in social media from say 2016 to, you know, as we are in 2024 now? For also how it's affected from a business side of things, really, as well.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more. It's a lot bigger now. It's huge now. It's just everywhere, and everything is social media, and there's TikTok as well now, which is massive. You know, but you can make livings on it, can't you? So you know, there's arguments to just go D2C. You know, I've thought about it many times. And stripping back and going direct to the customer and using social media because it's so strong. Like everything's done on social media, and you can contact athletes. You know, you can if you can nail the sponsored posts and how to do that properly. You can reach millions and millions of people and demographics, and you can itemize things out and different regions, and it's so powerful. It's unbelievable. And I can't really remember. I'm sure it's way more advanced now than it was back in 2015, 16. But it's just, it's incredible, really. You everything's done by social media. Like when somebody says to me, like, how do you launch? It's like, well, how else do you launch? You just launch on social media. Like, how else is people going to see your products now? You don't go and show them like face to face these days.
Yeah, of course.
You know, it's like, well, it's done over social and then it's kind of pushed out and maybe into publications or press or articles or, you know, shows. I mean, shows are slightly thing of the past, although the golf PGA show's absolutely mega. That's huge. But I know for a fact cricket shows are dying a death, you know, actual physical where you turn up. I used to go down to Lords and showcase a stand, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
But they don't do it now. So, I mean, everything's just done digitally, you know, and remotely. You send your digital catalogue to your buyers, all your price lists, your terms. You know, you might have a few ambassadors in there. You might have a few videos that you can showcase and that's it. You just press send.
Yeah.
You know, so it's slightly different. Definitely in cricket. Golf, golf's huge. It's such a big global sport, and very US based. So, they do it slightly different, and they've still got this PGA show, which is in Florida every year. And there's, 200, 300,000 people that go through those doors over a few days. It's ridiculous, which is really good to see, because there's nothing like face-to-face contact as well, in my opinion. But yeah.
And you mentioned there about the US and stuff with the golf side of things. And then this is just a general question really from my side of things. How does the US market for golf have a massive say across the whole worldwide thing of golf? Are they the sort of like the big?
They're 50%.
Right.
They're about 50% of the global market, which I think, top of my head, I'd regard golf being quite big in the UK. I don't know what you think. It's big. Big player.
Yeah.
And to put that in comparison to the US, we're about 7%, and they're about 50.
Yeah.
It shows how big the US golf market is. It's ridiculous. I think Korea's probably the second, which is about teens, probably 14%, 15%.
Yeah.
So it's streets ahead of everyone else is US.
Yeah.
And they have money, they have some money in the US. So they're not scared to spend $200 on a pair of golf shoes.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned there about like brand ambassadors. How important is it to get, say for instance, at the early stages when you were trying, you want to try and get people wearing the products. How important is it to sort of sometimes focus on getting the right people on board that match the brand values, rather than sort of trying to get as many people to wear the products? It's the ones that sort of match the direction which you're going in with.
100%. Yeah. And I feel like the Mikes over in America have done that really well with the golf. And, we didn't rush. We launched with one range in 3 different colorways, and we just took us time, and we built up some great feedback from everybody. We didn't go out and say, we need bloody Jason Day, or we need Tiger Woods straight away. It's like, let the product do its talking first. Brilliant. And we're not going to rush in and spend dollars that we ain't got. And then let's just see what comes to us, and let's just see what comes out of the woodwork, and let's just develop a next range, and then let's see what happens there. And that's exactly what we did. And we didn't really we've signed Jason Day now, but that's took, a long time. Yeah. His values were so important when Mike went and met Jason and his agent, right down to his family values. He's a family man. I'm a family man. Mike's a family man. We've all got young kids. It means so much, to all of us, that you can't just be some maverick that don't fit the brand, or, speaking out of turn, or saying what you shouldn't say in social media. Yeah. You have to fit the brand, because, that's who they are. That's who we are. So you have to be really careful when you're choosing brand ambassadors. And I've seen a lot of, sometimes it's not the brand's fault. People are people, and people make mistakes, and
definitely.
Shit happens sometimes, doesn't it? So it's, it does happen, but ultimately, we have to choose those ambassadors, and you've got to take your time in doing that, because it's a reflection of your brand.
Of course. I asked you the question in terms of what the lessons learned from sort of starting the cricket, then into the golf. What have you taken from golf that's now helped you, obviously, from this cricket side of things?
Yeah, a lot, to be honest. Yeah, and I'm not too proud to say that either, because you're learning all the time. I'm learning, and I had the vision, I had the determination and the grit to start the brand, which is huge. Sometimes forget that, because my partners, whoever they are, all the world and the Mikes, they've all done great things in their companies, but they haven't started the brand. I started the brand, but I know when people are better at things than I am. Yeah. And you take a step back and you let them do their thing. And that's exactly what's happened. And, and I'm learning from what they're doing now. And I love it. I'm just soaking it all up, because I'm still wanting to make cricket way better. You know, the products that they're creating over there on that side of the pond are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm learning things all the time, even though, you know, cricket started first, you know, ultimately golf will be way bigger than cricket just because of the size of the market. It's just ridiculous. And the money in golf, you know, people, the buyer of a golfer is totally different to a buyer of a cricket shoe. You know, they're totally different beasts.
Yeah.
You know, a good example is an average golfer might have 4 pairs of golf shoes. You know, he'll have a white pair, a black pair, a summer pair, a winter pair, all at like $150. And that's just the norm. And then they'll have a bag. It's thousands of dollars. And that's just what happens in golf. A cricketer will have 1 pair of cricket shoes. They'll want it for absolute peanuts and want it to last 3 years. You know, it's a different type of buyer. So it's definitely harder in terms of that. But yeah, I'm learning all the time from the golf guys. And, you know, I'm taking it all, you know, I want to create and use some of that, which I have done actually in the new products for 2025 for cricket. So that's super exciting.
Brilliant.
And we've really turned that round because it needed to, you know, and that's just me being honest, you know. I felt like now's the time. We've done the hard yards. We went through a bit of a dull patch, and now we're coming out the other side with products that are way beyond what we've ever done before, which I'm super excited about. So yeah, there's ups and downs. There's always ups and downs.
Yeah, definitely. That's really interesting. Obviously, what you mentioned there about the American side of things, because it's true in terms. Well, it's not just American. The golf side of things, I totally agree. A lot of my friends are all golfers and really, really keen golfers, and like I said, they do have different pairs of shoes and stuff. And I probably had a pair of spikes for 3 years, so I literally fit exactly what you said there. So,
but imagine that on a global scale.
Yeah,
how much that is for a brand when your repeat customer might spend $1,000 with you a year, and cricket might be $100.
Yeah,
you know, it's a huge gap. And then when you've got 100,000 customers, you know, that's a lot of money. You know, so it's totally different sports, totally different. But yeah, it's cool. It's amazing to have the golf doing so well, and it's super exciting. Yeah, getting, you know, somebody like Jason Day on board was incredible as well. So,
have you got any better at golf now? You've the market.
I have actually. I played last. I'm playing this Friday in a golf day, but I played last week just with my friends, and I shot 78, which is it was probably one of the best rounds I've done. And I said to the lads, I said, I know why. It's because bloody my putts went down. Usually I'm 3-putting, and you know, I was either 1-putting or 2-putting, and that makes so much difference. But yeah, I played really well actually. But it's a very addictive game. Do you guys play?
If you can call it play, you know, it's a loose term for me.
Not a bandit, are you? You're banditing?
No, I'm just terrible.
I've never tried to play, and I'm not sure if I will ever try to play.
Really? I thought
my wife's been trying to get me into it for the past 2 years now. Every teammate I have plays golf, and they've been trying to get me into it as well, and I've just not had the passion to play.
I think if you start, you won't stop. It's quite addictive, but I think from cricketers I've seen, cricketers love golf more than cricket, 100%.
Yeah,
you've played that for ages,
100%.
Every single one of them I know. I have teammates that are like upset, like visibly upset with the coach. Why do we have practice when I can be on the golf course now?
It's definitely a bug. But that's good. That's good for us anyway.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely from a business
perspective. They kind of go hand in hand in a little way. So that's good.
Yeah, definitely. Guy, have you got anything to add?
I do, but I think it would be very unfair of me to add much more time to this episode. So maybe in the future we can sort of.
I do apologize,
a part two. But no, I think just from my side quickly, and obviously I've followed the journey. Like I remember initially when I got some of the shoes to try way back when as well. So like, no, I think it's a very inspirational story, like an amazing journey. And it's like for someone like me as well as a cricketer myself, going on the same journey of going on the path of business with my wife and some of the things that we're doing as well. Like, it's just great to follow up and see what you're doing. And I hope it inspires other cricketers to, break the mold of what next after cricket and just staying cocooned into the coaching, the commentary roles, and look at opportunities outside of cricket. I mean, I'm right now doing my master's degree at Warwick University because my wife, along with her family, my family, are very strict on, I guess, that sort of formal education kind of thing. And it's good for, I guess, players to expand their horizons. I mean, it's as you rightfully said, it's a scary journey. Like, you don't know what you're getting into. You don't know how it's going to work out because you have no idea about that field. But you only know once you take a leap. Just like when we were kids and we started playing cricket, we didn't know what the hell it was going to turn out to be. But we took a step and it continued and it progressed, and that's just the nature of life. If you're scared to take the first step, then you'll never know what you could be in anything. So I think what you're doing is really, really amazing. And I hope that people are paying attention and not just obviously looking at the products, but looking at the I guess the mental fortitude that it's taken for you to be able to go and try and do something like this and have success and continue to build a brand.
I appreciate that. No, I think that's really well said. But I want to, because I'd like to say as well, I'm just such a normal guy. Like, I've nothing special about me at all. I really am. I was just a normal guy who liked to play cricket, wasn't involved in business or this or that. And it's just like, look, I just wanted to do something. And I just persisted with it. I'm no Elon Musk or anything like that. It's like I just had this vision and I didn't take my eye off it. And I was so passionate and focused that I was going to get to where it wanted to go. Yeah. And I wasn't going to rush it. And I had my wife who had a steady job. So I kind of weighed that risk up a little bit. I wasn't stupid in that respect where we were like literally skin or not be able to pay the bills. So, but again, just like you said, if you don't try something, life's so short. Like, if you want to try it, just try it. Well, the worst thing that can happen is you fail and you go back to the drawing board. But then you might succeed, and and like you put it so well, Kai. It's just I hope I can inspire some people,
100%,
especially cricketers, because I was just one of those cricketers. Didn't have a clue what to do.
Yeah, 100%.
No, I think it goes to show, you put your mind to it, you focus on what you wanted to do, and you ultimately took the leap, which is, takes a hell of a lot of balls more, but, and I think you said extremely admirable side of things, like Kieran said then, the fact that, people should be aware of what it takes, and that's the values in the brand are more than just, it's, I think it's brilliant. I've really enjoyed tonight talking to you about where it all started and how it all changed, and, various bits and pieces like that. It's sometimes something, I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak.
Pleasure. I've loved it, lads. Thanks for having me.
And I'd love to recommend that your next sport be football, because if you think golf has got money, Jesus.
Yeah.
Get into that market.
Yeah. One step at a time.
Oh, thank you so much, though, Dave. It's been great. Really appreciate your time.
Appreciate it, lads. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us on the PowettPlay podcast, hosted by Kieran Powell and Jordan Shannon. We hope you enjoyed this immersive dive into the world of cricket and business, exploring the unique experiences and perspectives of players past and present, alongside those invaluable insights into intriguing business themes that transcend beyond the boundaries of sporting heroics. Be sure to set your reminders on your Alexa or Google Home device, or we won't tell anyone if you still use those paper calendar things from a bygone era. Join us next time for more inspiring dialogue with scintillating minds on the PowettPlay podcast.